Alright, and now on to Sonic. And now on to Sonic. Thank you. So, right off the bat, as soon as I'm done exploring and finding nothing, yes, right off the bat we're introduced to the vertical element, and falling, and the corkscrew element. There's also a lot of ladders in this stage, but you can skip pretty much all of them by spin dashing and just jumping. So I mentioned that this stage has some similarities to Ice Cap, and even though it's not quite the same as Ice Cap, whereas so in Ice Cap you were exploring sort of the center of the circle, and here you're going around the outside of circular structures. It still has a lot of basically shortcuts you can take, where you spin dash and you cut out a section of the stage, whether it's dashing to another pillar early, or whether there's like a segment of a pillar that you can skip. And also a lot like Ice Cap, and I mean I guess it goes for every level in this game, but there's lots of stuff hidden just off the beaten path. Unlike Speed Highway, this has a lot. This stage doesn't have a lot of cutscenes, like basically where Speed Highway would make you run along a highway and you'd be doing loops and stuff, but never controlling it. In this stage, you get those. I don't know what those are called. I should probably know because it'd be good to have a vocabulary. But you get those like zipline things, and that's pretty much all you get for cutscenes in this stage. So, the stage takes on a bit of a slower pace, partially because there's no cutscenes, and partially because a lot of the platforming slows you down. Like, there's skull things you have to wait for, the fire-breathing skull things. And the ladders will slow you down if you decide to take them. So it's like Ice Cap in that regard as well. And the parallel paths you see... Oh look, camera stuck. I didn't actually realize until this playthrough that this was down here. Like, who would ever fall down here? That's such an easy jump to make, but exploring as Knuckles, I looked and I found it. And yeah, speaking of places where people shouldn't die, anyway, I was about to say earlier that you get a bunch of parallel paths in this stage, but that's just, like, those all fall under shortcuts. Like the crumbling bridge before, that was just a part to entirely skip that lower part with all the fire. And here's yet another shortcut that I screw up. There are just so many places where you can cut out entire segments of this stage that even with the Metal Sonic playthrough, I can't show off everything. This stage does have a lot you can play around with and stuff. What's odd is that the game, like, see that ledge up there? The game really doesn't want you to go up there. You can get up, I mean, like, it'd be pretty easy to make the jump up there with using the top ladder, but the game, like, just has an invisible wall there to prevent you from going there. So, while the first part of Red Mountain had those cylinders that you could run around, and then there would be, like, as you were running around a cylinder, there would be a pit to jump over, or, you know, there would be a pit to jump over to get to the next cylinder. The second part of the stage is a lot more straightforward. It's more about those jumps over pits than it is about any sort of corkscrews or circular motions. It's not like it's an entirely straight line, but you definitely don't get those circles like you do in the first part. There's also a lot more stuff hidden off to the sides, and you'll see a lot of the same. You'll see a lot of the same stuff used. Like there's crumbling bridges, but instead of a crumbling bridge over safe land, and then you have to face a bunch of fire-breathing skeletons. There's a crumbling bridge. Like there are crumbling bridges over lava, and if you fall, like, that's an instant hit. So it's like they took the first part and decided to just focus on that one sort of platforming. So it's kind of neat to see that the more intense platforming bits are broken up by more generous running bits, where like the outside portion didn't have too many big land masses where you could just run freely. This will give you, you know, a segment where you can run around and stuff every now and then, but then you'll get more difficult jumps. And also, I love the graphics down here. Like, what is this, Metropolis Zone? Ah, you're kidding me. Yeah, this is so bizarre. Like, you never see weird things in Sonic. It's usually more cool than weird, but what can I say? I also find it interesting that even though they take out the corkscrew aspect, they still manage to work in a lot of shortcuts. So it definitely still belongs to the same Red Mountain where they just decided to take out the corkscrews so that you had a more intense focus on the platforming and the shortcuts. I also noticed while playing this that you don't... in general in this game, there is never a use for the item that you pick up right before the stage. The magic something or other. But yeah. But in this stage especially, like, you would assume you just got it, why not use it? And I think the way I handle this LP sort of speaks to the disjointed feel of Sonic Adventure, where the overworld and all that stuff going on just has little to no impact on the gameplay. The big exception to that is, of course, the light speed dash. That is implemented a whole bunch in the stages. Anyway, see you back for Metal Sonic. Yes. That one bird is always at the end of this stage, isn't he? Or she. I don't know what gender it is. And now for Metal Sonic. Your mission, should you accept it, is to clear the stage within 3 minutes, as you can see. So this is where I'm going to show off a lot of the shortcuts like that, and like this. But I'm not going to get to all of them, even the ones I don't even get to show them all off between the two Sonics, because there's just so many. I wanted to mention that this stage reminded me of how much the homing attack is questionable. I'm sorry. So earlier I was talking about how I liked the concept where, like, Sonic would do a corkscrew around a pillar, and then jump to another pillar, and do another corkscrew, and so on and so forth. And this game is chock full of just, like, really basic structure ideas that are neat. Like in Speed Highway, I mentioned the final portion of the stage that used structure I thought was really neat. And just all these really basic structural ideas that show an excitement for dealing with 3D platforming. Also, I like these platforms. I don't know. I mean, with all moving platforms, it's just you gotta wait around for the right time, but I don't know. I think that's an interesting and neat way to move. Anyway. Yes. So, Sonic Adventure shows an interest in exploring what 3D platforming can be like and all the different crazy different structures you can make. And, I mean, Sonic Team over the years sort of fell more and more into similar-y structures. And by the time you get to Sonic Unleashed, they're not too crazy. But still, when Sonic Colors came around, it seemed like a part of Sonic Team had died. Like, I know that's funny to say, because Sonic Colors is a great friggin' game. And it takes after Sonic... Jeez. It takes after Donkey Kong Country in a lot of really great ways. But it resigns... oh, also, get ready for me to screw up spin dash jumps a whole lot in this segment. But basically the only 3D segments are there to break up the more platformy segments with fast bits. I mean, there's some interesting 3D parts, but they're very far and few between. And with Sonic Generations, they continued the trend. There's not as much focus on 3D, or there's very minimal focus on 3D. So it seems like Sonic Team has just decided that Sonic is a 2D game, and, well, there's nothing we can do about it. I guess if that's the only way you can make reliably good games that will actually, like, that critics won't hate, and that gamers won't hate while we're at it, then I guess that's what they gotta do. Also, just gonna tank the end here. But I don't know. I miss the Sonic Team that was like this. That was like, I want to see what Sonic can do in 3D. I think he's done a lot of cool stuff. Maybe not all of it was entirely playable, but you know what? For all the terrible loading times it had, Sonic 06 I thought had some neat level ideas. You know, Kingdom Forest. So yeah. I guess it's sad, but it's necessary that Sonic Team just gives up on 3D. Ah, you didn't think it would be that easy, did ya? Nope. We still got a sub-game to go through. Sky Chase, Act 2. If you're the kind of person that gets motion sick, or if you're the kind of person that barfs when they see a really bad rail shooter segment, you probably want to turn the video off at this point. Okay, if you're still here, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I hope you noticed, when Metal Sonic cleared the stage, there was still that red bird there. I don't know what that red bird's deal is about. So, this might be the hardest emblem in the game. As I recall, it was the very last emblem that I got. Not clearing it straightforward, but to get a second emblem from this, you need to... Yeah, you don't need to do 100%, but you need to get a whole bunch of the enemies. And it's really, like... Despite the fact that everything moves really super slowly, it's still pretty hard to get everything. It's kind of interesting how, like, simultaneously boring and difficult this is. Like, usually if something is difficult, I get wrapped up in, you know, strategies for how to clear it, or something like that, but I guess part of it is that it's just raw memorization of, you know, where things are going to appear. And there's also, like, basically if you kill something but kill it off screen, you don't get the points. There's some leeway, but yeah. Also, pro tip for dealing with this guy, don't use your lock-ons, just do a straightforward shot, like keep mashing the A button in front of him, because you can get multiple shots in there. Anyway, I would say I prefer the Sonic Unleashed version, except QuickTime. Like, I don't mind the QuickTime events, I mind that the stages are so friggin' long. Anyway, next time we have Skydeck. Ah, Skydeck. That might be my second favorite level. Anyway, see ya.